bad, so what's the difference?
So David, he did, despite all the things with, the problems with women and all that, David Berkowitz is a fascinating character to me, not just because of how he grew up, but also because of the perceptions that people have about him. And the way that people really oversimplify this guy is that David Berkowitz was actually a pretty complicated guy in a lot of different ways. He actually did have somewhat of a sweetheart growing up, a girl named Iris Gerhardt. Oh, yeah, good old Iris. About David, she said,
I was never intimate with him, I mean, we were 4. We just kissed each other on the lips in the building behind Co-op City when we all hung around in the local community club. But I must confess, I liked him a lot.
Yeah, I've got this book.
Good.
Yeah, I got this book that I got in. Fascinating little true crime artifact. It's called Son of Sam, the 44 caliber killer, and it was written after Berkowitz was caught, but before he was sentenced. There's a little picture on the cover that just said that has Son of Sam, and it says "The Accused," and it was written by a New York Post reporter, probably in 3 weeks or something like that. So it's just horribly but wonderfully written all at the same time, and he devotes an entire chapter to Iris Gerhardt. He found her, he did interviews with her, and found out a lot about David Berkowitz when he was growing up, when he was in high school. Was not always the loner that he later became. Weird dude. Definitely a weird dude, but he still had close friends. In fact, they all threw him a party the night before he left to join the Army in 1971. They all drove him to Port Authority the next morning, all said goodbye. They hung out together. They had like New Year's Eve parties together.
At some point, though, it sounds a bit like an overkill when they throw you the party when you're leaving and then they drive you to make sure you get on the train. It makes you think that they wanted him gone, and he's like, guys, but what if I stayed? And they're like, no, you want to go. You're going to. Guys, you guys have been so nice.
It's 1971. Vietnam's going to be a blast.
Where you're going to Vietnam, you're going to do nothing but surf. No, get in the bus. No.
I was thinking you guys have been so good to me these past couple of days. Maybe I should just stick around.
Get in the fucking bus. Drive away.
Friends
like...
So he did actually manage to avoid Vietnam.
But what he said about himself was that no matter what happened to him, he said he was always surrounded by love and people loving him, and he had a lot of friends, but he always felt distinctly alone, like what you see a lot. It's a trait of being a kind of like a psychopath, because a part of it is that you do believe you're better than other people. He believed that it was the thing, because he called himself the schmutz, which means the dirty one, and he said that he was never good enough, that all he did was bring the party down. And the thing is that if you have that attitude, you are ruining everybody's good time. You are doing that. So it's self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah. You can't receive love and you can't give love. That's the problem.
You can't love yourself before you love anybody else.
That's right. That's right.
So David, he managed to avoid Vietnam.
But also he had a very big nationalist streak, which we're also going to see about Davey Berkey, is that he loved to belong to a group. He never wanted to be a leader. He just wanted to be a part of some sort of society. And so he went to join the army because he wanted to be a Jewish super soldier. Like, truly. He was like, I want to be a Jewish kid that becomes famous for, like, dying in the fucking Vietnam.
Yeah,
and then what happens when he goes to Vietnam? He gets sent to Korea.
Which is, of course, part of a larger government conspiracy in order for them to continue the war in Vietnam, the proxy war against the Russians. If Berkowitz goes over to Vietnam, you know what happens? We win the war. And they know for a fact, as soon as you send big fat David over there, the Viet Cong are going to surrender immediately. We need at least another 5-6 years of this thing.
The other thing about David Berkowitz wanting to belong is that in his co-op, where he grew up, Co-op City, that had their own fire precinct, he would go down there, he would sneak in and put on firefighter uniforms and would sometimes wear them home, and they'd have to go up and say hey, David, you can't do this, you can't steal uniforms. He was a part of the NYPD Auxiliary Police Force for a couple of years. This guy, all he wanted to do was to belong to a group, loved the uniform. So he was sent to Korea, but even though he was sent to Korea because he scored pretty high on his tests, on his aptitude test, they sent him to Korea to be pretty much an administrator. He nonetheless learned how to shoot a gun he was not that bad at it. He was able to bullseye 37 targets out of 100. That's not the best, but it's sharpshooter range. That's pretty fucking good.
37%?
Bullseye 37%.
Oh, bullseye.
Oh, yeah, man. Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty good.
It's easy to do when you just imagine, at that time, just being like, gotta get it right in the hole in the vagina. That's the only way to really to destroy the woman. Oh, I see that. Oh, the Korean over there, he's got a vagina for you. I'm gonna put a bullet right in it. No, David, we're not at war with the Koreans. We're just hanging out here. We're just here going to whorehouses, wasting everybody's time and money.
Well, David, he never really talked a whole lot about his experience with women while he was in Korea. Sometimes he said that he chased them a little bit. Other times he said that he hinted towards that he might have lost his virginity in Korea.
Yeah.
And if he did, that was the only time he had sex. We know that for a fact. But David, also in Korea, started to experiment with drugs. Took a lot of acid, smoked a lot of pot, and did a lot of cocaine.
Normally that makes somebody really awesome.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're getting into that. He was starting to live the groovy drug life. He started to become kind of a super left-wing pacifist. And in letters to Iris, he started to ramble about nonviolence, quote-unquote, war pigs, and the power of love. 1971, acid head ramblings, pretty much. He refused to carry a weapon and was nearly discharged for that. But by the time
he's in the army, you know what I mean? You're still in the army. You gotta have at least to hold the gun.
Yeah, well, he was trying to get conscientious objector status. He wanted to work as a firefighter or something like that. But by the time his career in the army was almost over, the rhetoric that he had that went from the power of love, like all these war pigs, like man, we really got to all come together. It started to change. It started to sour a little bit, and this is what he wrote in one of his last letters.
I might turn out to be a lifetime freak. They taught me about many weapons. I will use these tactics to destroy. Also, please send schmear. Please send bagels and schmear to Korea. The only schmear I find comes from it's horrible jawed stuff that comes from the legs of some of these whores out here. And I'm looking for some real cream cheese, some real Brooklyn. Oof. How I do long for some scallion cream cheese.
Vietnam was hard for everybody. It was a tough war on many, many levels.
So I think that Berkowitz, much like the Manson family, like a lot was happening in the late 70s when a lot of people were experimenting with this stuff and didn't really understand that you can't take acid every day.
Well, not if you have an STD either. I'm just sitting here thinking how trippy it must be to have like Gorpy, the big love bump on the side of your penis and you're tripping acid, and at some point you just start talking to it, right?
Yeah, it becomes your friend.
Yeah, it must
It's just like, don't worry there, buddy. I love you. I'm your girlfriend now, because I ain't never going away.
Yeah, it's the only gal that stuck around on him.
Well, I think Berkowitz, like the Manson family, they took so much acid because they went straight past peace and love and landed in the land of violent, paranoid delusions. He was so close to being groovy. If he only would have stopped doing the cocaine, if he only would have stopped taking acid every day, and if he wasn't kind of fucked up to begin with, he might have been okay. Just kids out there know when to stop.
Just do it basically as soon as nobody else is dancing. That's how you know when if the party's going too long, where you're the last guy dancing and you have to do you're like, come on guys, let's go, let's get into it, let's get nuts. The party's over. You got to stop.
I always say take a nap. That's kind of a fun thing to do after you're doing a bunch of drugs. And as soon as you start boarding up your windows.
So David also had one more change in store from the army. He found Christ in Korea. Not surprisingly,
I saw the face of Jesus in her labia.
Would you even believe I saw it? And it was just like, I was like, oh, I see his beard. Oh, and his long hair hanging down. Oh, that's just... Oh, she is unkept. This woman is just not been maintaining. But I can see the nose, the top of it. Oh, it's clitoris.
Not surprisingly, the Christians who knew him in Korea, that this post reporter went and interviewed, they called him, quote,
fantastic guy with a great personality. Great. He's a Sir winner.
Henry, they weren't Korean. The people, they weren't Korean that he was hanging out with. They were in Korea. They were white people in Korea.
Missionaries.
It just says the Christians that he knew in Korea.
No. I know that's what it says. I know it says the Christians he knew in Korea, but they weren't actually Christian. They were more like, fantastic guy with a great personality, a great soul winner.
Yeah, maybe Southern, something like that.
Yeah.
See, I just assumed if, we're all in church in Korea, they just start talking like that because that's how the Korean Jesus talks.
I understand Henry's point of view on this one. It's very confusing.
Blessed art meek, for them hit the bird. Sirs, better than barbecue sauce.
And welcome everybody tuning in after the Heroes premiere this Thursday.
That's right. That's Henry Zabrowski, the man you're cheering for.
So he was discharged in 1971, returned to New York City, a completely obnoxious evangelist and left-wing anti-war dove. Mm-hmm. Now, between the new Jesus freak thing and the constant anti-war ramblings, not a single person who knew him before he went into the army, not even his father, could stand to be anywhere around him.
And we talked about this on Top Hat. People coming back like totally peaceful after they see the perils of war. Of course, he just saw a whole series of prostitutes, and that traumatized him to the point where he became a dove. But I guarantee you, he hopped on that bandwagon, and I don't know this for sure, but I guarantee it, he voted for Mr. Jimmy Carter.
He might have. Well, he was in prison by the time Carter came around.
Well, he still voted for him.
So, he even called his best friend Ed, who had joined the Coast Guard, he called him, quote, a war pig and rightist militant.
That's what we call our friend Ed.
Which is so strange. No. We call him a warg pig.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Because it's our word for how wide he is.
Yes.
The thing is that Ed joined the Coast Guard to get as far away from fighting as humanly possible.
Right.
He's being a beach cop. That's what being a Coast Guard is. He's literally a bikini inspector.
Ooh.
Yeah, it doesn't sound too war piggish to me.
No.
So Berkowitz, alienating everybody that he knew, moved out of the neighborhood that he grew up in, got a job as a security guard, and officially began his life as a loner.
Now, did he join the loner union? Because with the loner union, you get trench coat, grease for your hair that just comes from the crooks of motel beds, and you get the action sandals.
Wow, that's a hell of a grab bag.
So David's new neighbors, they didn't have any easier of a time with him than his old friends and family. His downstairs neighbor, Craig Glassman, received threatening handwritten letters from Berkowitz on a regular basis. This is what one of them said.
How dare you force me into the night to do your bidding? True, yes, I am the killer, but Craig the killer kills on your command. The streets have been filled with blood at the request of Craig. Because Craig is Craig, so must the streets be filled with Craig.
Signed David Berkowitz, apartment 1B.
This is from David Berkowitz. I should have said something. Didn't mean to scare you. Didn't mean to surprise you. But you left your newspaper out. I thought I'd bring it to you. I hate it when people steal it, Craig, forcing me to murder.
I just, if I was Jewish, I would be upset with Woody Allen. Because he just created every impression. I know that's Berkowitz.
Oh, God. It's the dog. It's telling me to do it. And I said the old dogs need to be spayed. I'm more of a cat person, so quiet, self-maintained. But this dog, oh, God, it just won't let me sleep. Oh, where's my maguga? I got to put my maguga on before I go to Sabbath soup time. There's a Sabbath soup night.
Boy, you're just never going to work again, are you?
Sabbath soup night does sound very fun, though. I would love to go. If you're out there listening and you know where a Sabbath soup night is in your area, let me know. I'll fly down and see you.
So after Berkowitz returned to New York, he found out that his birth mother was actually still alive. He contacted her. Strangely enough, failed to connect with her.
Because you know what he said? He expected her to be a beautiful woman.
Yeah.
When he had built her up in his mind, and when he got the word that his mom was still alive, he went to go look for her, and they met up with each other, and he said he met her and he expected her to be this ethereally beautiful like woman dressed in white, and she was just this tiny Jewish woman, and he couldn't handle it. She was a little Jewish Italian woman, and he would do this impression of her where he would put his hands up over his ears and go, "I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry," which is what he said to the psychiatrist. The psychiatrist talked in this great documentary called Son of Sam Speaks.
Yeah.
And it's just him. He was just so mad that his mom didn't have big tits.
That's a fun client to have. If you're a psychiatrist, David Berkowitz is a hell of a client to have.
Oh, great
Always a
one.
long day. Never meet your idols. They always just end up getting drunk, whipping out their dicks, and demanding you go buy them cocaine.
So not long after he visited his birth mother, he wrote in a letter to his father.
The girls, they call me ugly, and they bother me the most. It's my underwear that gets all tight up inside of my gugga, which is between my knuckles and my bishel back here, where my poo-poo comes. Poo-poo comes out of the bishel, and my guggas are where my semens are.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. Those are all, yeah. That's good.
So again, like many other serial killers, David was also an arsonist. From 1974 to 1977, David was responsible for 1,500 fires in and around New York City, each one detailed in his journal, in which he referred to himself as the Phantom of the Bronx.
Very fun. Very
Can I
creative.
toss a nerd alert onto that one?
But 1,500 fires, I mean, that is enough for in itself to stand alone as a career criminal, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't even have to go to the other step of murdering people.
Yeah.
Well, he was caught trying to set fire to his own apartment building. That is true. Some guys caught him, and it's like, "What are you doing?" He was out with like literally a can of kerosene, just going like, "Oh, just making the building wet." Yeah. And they're like, "No. You're trying to set fire to everyone inside." They stopped that. He said that he would love the idea of setting a fire, and then he'd immediately call the fire department,
Right.
so that he could feel the feeling of saving everyone as well.
Right. And that is the definition of don't shit where you eat. You know, he just tried to burn down his own place. Just go, gotta go a couple doors down.
Actually, the very definition of that is shitting inside of a Happy Meal box.
Yeah, it wasn't the only time he tried burning his building down. The man downstairs, Mr. Glassman, he used to set trash on fire. One time, he set trash on fire on Glassman's front porch and threw a bunch of 22 bullets into the fire, hoping that they would explode when Glassman came out. A much more cruel...
So that's called technically setting a Yosemite Sam bomb.
Yeah. It's kind of fun.
So as Berkowitz's hatred and resentment of women reached a fever pitch, David decided it was time for him to take action. However, he would not use the revolver that he would eventually become famous for. His first weapon of choice was a knife. And because of what he'd seen in the movies, David thought that knifing a woman would be quick, easy, just one in the stomach, and then she'd fall. But on that...
But that is very similar to Ed Kemper. Same thing. Where it's like, because they're losers, they build up these ideas of killings like in their mind. Because up to this point, he was just obsessed with killing. His biological aunt wanted him to be closer to their family, so he kept showing up and like hanging out for... But eventually, like, he would just be consumed with this idea of, I have to kill women, I have to kill women. And he just thought it would be easy.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not a very smart guy. He gets a lot of his ideas from movies, which is also why he bought a white Volkswagen Bug, and he thought he could talk. He named it Herbie, and he tried to win the big race.
Which is the saddest thing of him just yelling at his car, just going like, "Why won't you be my friend, Herbie?
I know.
You're supposed to help me win the race, Herbie. You're supposed to help me find Goldie Hawn. Me and Goldie Hawn are supposed to go on a date, Herbie." And there's just like cars just lined up at the red light.
Right. Herbie's just not going. Yeah.
It's just not going to happen.
You said you were going to take me for ice cream later, but you're just sitting there. You're not driving yourself. Drive me to ice cream, Herbie. You're my slave.
On the first night of the first attack, it was Christmas Eve, 1975. Berkowitz discovered that stabbing was actually a prolonged, messy, and very loud process, particularly when you're attacking women on the streets of the Bronx, as he was.
I did it on Christmas Eve because all Jewish people are invisible on Christmas Eve. But I didn't realize that people were just going to see a knife floating around. Oh, God, I should have thought about it. You know, what's scarier than a knife floating around? Even that scares me, and I'm the one with the knife.
It's a terrifying idea.
Really is. So he tried to kill twice that night, and neither attempt gave David anywhere near the satisfaction that he wanted. The first attempt, she simply, when he started stabbing her, she was walking out of the grocery store, he started stabbing her, she just turned around, looked at him, and wordlessly just ran away. But the other one, she screamed her head off as he stabbed her 6 times. About that attempt, he later said,
I didn't want to hurt them. I only wanted to kill them.
So about a month later, David moved from the Bronx to Yonkers, where he claimed his demonic delusions began. His landlords, Jack and Nan Cassara, owned a German Shepherd that David claimed was the one who first told him to kill young girls.
Why does everybody have these dogs? Why is it always dogs? Why can't it be a parakeet? Oh, my mother had a parakeet, and oh, that's right, I killed it. Well, maybe it's pets I have a problem with. I'm allergic to them.
But you do wonder if his previous downstairs neighbor missed the notes. You know, he's just like, I didn't like the notes so much. I thought they were creepy while he was here, but I missed that creepy fat bastard.
Well, he also said that Jack Cassara had an alias called Captain Jack Cosmo, in which Captain Jack commanded an army of devil dogs all across Yonkers.
So he was.
I wish I had an army of devil dogs right now.
So he lasted 3 months in that apartment before he moved to the studio where he would live for the duration of the murders. But David couldn't find any peace there either, for a black lab named Harvey, owned by his neighbor Sam Carr, was waiting for him. David said that Sam was possessed by demons. The son of that demon told him to commit the murders, and with that, Son of Sam was born.
Well, yes, it's very interesting because this is where the story was, where his Son of Sam tale began, and we're going to find out later on that this is only the first tale that he would tell about his actual demon possession, and that this is actually not the true one. The true one is that he was a part of a gigantic, multi-armed, international satanic cult that was aimed to create societal chaos, right, dog meat?
Oh, just like the Hand of Death was created to do the exact same thing with Henry Lee Lucas and Otis Toole?
Coincidence? I think yes.
So about a month before the murders began, Berkowitz drove down to Houston, Texas to visit an old army buddy of his, a man that would later refer to David as his best friend in the whole world.
Oh, that's the saddest man in the story.
So sad.
Yep, just a guy hanging out in Houston waiting for his buddy from the big city to come down and visit.
Oh.
So apparently David just kind of went to Houston, convinced his buddy to ask him, basically convince his buddy to buy a gun for him because he didn't have a proper driver's license. But you needed to have a driver's license in Texas to buy a gun. So he went all the way to Texas to buy a gun that was more difficult for him to get in Texas. And then when his buddy asked him, why did you get this gun? Why am I buying this for you? He was like, oh, it's to protect me on my way back from Texas to New York City. So he bought a gun. He traveled a dangerous trip, quote unquote, dangerous trip to go to Houston to buy the gun to protect him to go back.
Makes perfect sense.
Well, logic like that works with the person who considers David Berkowitz his best friend.
Oh, yeah.
I'll just say I liked his piercing eyes and I like his constant complaints.
So the gun, the revolver that was bought, that's the gun that would give Berkowitz his original nickname. It was a Charter Arms Bulldog 44 caliber revolver. Now, the Bulldog was a very interesting weapon. It was originally designed for use on passenger aircraft after all those hijackings happened in the 1970s. It was designed to not puncture the fuselage on an aircraft. So what it was designed for, it wasn't designed to be rough enough to go straight through the aircraft. aircraft and to cause cabin pressure to go out the window. It was designed only to kill at extremely close range.
Air gun. Cool.
Yeah, it after 20 feet, the aiming went all off. The velocity definitely went down on the gun. So this was a gun that was designed for the express purpose of close-up murder. So when David got back to Yonkers, he quit his security guard job and got work as a cab driver, which is where he learned the ins and outs of the roads in the Bronx, Queens, and Brooklyn.
Well,
it's very interesting how he took a bunch of like quintessential 1970s New York jobs. It's like every job that Robert De Niro had in a movie, he did. And it's all about getting used to the underworld, and it's part of filling his weird fantasy life about being this underworld creature. And I think that he didn't even belong in the underworld. Like, he was such a weird like guy who just would try. He was such a try-hard no matter what it is that he did, that like even there it's like, you're not even like a cat burglar, man. You talking about how you fucking prowl the streets at night just makes you sound like a bigger loser.
Yeah.
But I will say, I've been in many cabs here in New York City. Nobody knows where they're going